Long before modern cities, before roads cut through forests and lights filled the night sky, the world moved to a slower, older rhythm, shaped by sun, wind, and survival, where vast lands stretched untouched and ancient creatures ruled every corner of the earth, from open plains to dense jungles, from high cliffs to deep oceans. And in this age, life followed simple but powerful rules: eat, endure, adapt, and survive. Towering herbivores like Triceratops, Ankylosaurus, and Diplodocus spent their days grazing on endless fields of ferns and low-growing plants, moving in steady groups for protection. Their size not built for speed, but for strength and patience. While nearby, predators such as Tyrannosaurus rex, Allosaurus, and Spinosaurus watched carefully from the shadows, conserving energy, waiting for the right moment when weakness showed itself, when an injured animal slowed, or when the herd drifted too far apart. And above them, the sky belonged to winged rulers like Pteranodon and Quetzalcoatlus, gliding silently on warm air currents, scanning the land and water below for movement, while smaller feathered dinosaurs darted through trees, quick and alert, feeding on insects and seeds, always aware that danger could come from any direction. And as rivers carved paths through the land, they became lifelines, drawing creatures great and small, where massive Sarcosuchus lurked beneath the surface, motionless as stone, while fish shimmered in schools, and early amphibians rested along muddy banks. And beyond the shorelines, ancient oceans teemed with life, where Mosasaurus and Pliosaurus ruled the depths, powerful swimmers built for pursuit, while ammonites drifted with the currents and prehistoric sharks patrolled open waters. And in these environments, every creature had a role. Grazers shaping the land by what they consumed, hunters controlling balance through pursuit, scavengers ensuring nothing went to waste, and birds filling the skies with calls that echoed across valleys. And as early human civilizations began to emerge much later, they would inherit a world already shaped by millions of years of survival, learning from the patterns left behind, understanding migration, seasons, and the delicate balance between hunter and hunted. And even then, nature remained dominant, unforgiving yet fair, rewarding awareness and punishing carelessness. And as day turned to night in this ancient world, fires of the sun faded, temperatures dropped, predators grew bolder, stars filled the sky unhindered by smoke or steel, and life continued its endless cycle, generation after generation, a living system driven not by choice, but by instinct. And today, as we uncover fossils buried beneath layers of time, we begin to understand that this lost world was not chaotic, but organized, not cruel, but necessary, a reminder that long before us, the earth was alive with giants, hunters, flyers, swimmers, and survivors, each playing their part in the greatest story ever written, the story of life itself. As seasons shifted across this ancient world, the land itself became a living force, shaping behavior, movement, and survival. Where dry periods pushed herds to travel great distances in search of water, carving invisible migration routes passed down through instinct, while rainy seasons transformed plains into lush feeding grounds, drawing grazers in vast numbers, and inevitably drawing hunters close behind. And in dense forests, smaller dinosaurs relied on camouflage and quick reflexes, blending into shadows, leaves, and bark, as larger predators struggled to maneuver through tangled roots and towering trees. While pack hunters coordinated through subtle movements and low calls, testing defenses, learning patterns, and striking only when success was likely. And along coastal regions, life balanced between land and sea, where reptiles basked on warm rocks before slipping into shallow waters, seabirds gathered in noisy colonies, and tides delivered food in rhythmic abundance. And beneath the ocean's surface, ancient reefs pulsed with color and motion, providing shelter for countless species, while massive marine predators cruised open waters with patience, their power built not for chaos, but for control.
And above all of this, the sky remained a highway of movement, with flying reptiles riding thermal currents for hours without a single wing beat, conserving energy while surveying a world that never truly rested. And even in moments of calm, tension remained, because survival demanded constant awareness, a sharpened sense of sound, vibration, and scent. And over millions of years, this balance created ecosystems so refined that even the smallest change could ripple outward, altering migration paths, food chains, and dominance. And when natural disasters struck, volcanic eruptions, shifting continents, or sudden climate changes, life responded not with surrender, but with adaptation. Some species fading into history, others evolving new traits, new strategies, new forms. And this relentless progression laid the groundwork for the world that would follow, proving that extinction was not an end, but a transformation, a reshaping of life's direction. And as time moved forward, layer upon layer of history settled into the earth, preserving moments of struggle, triumph, and survival in stone, waiting for discovery, reminding us that the ancient world was not silent or still, but alive with movement, purpose, and resilience, a vast living chapter that continues to echo through the landscapes and oceans we know today.
As centuries stretched into ages, intelligence and behavior became just as important as size and strength, and many creatures learned that survival was not only about power, but timing, memory, and cooperation. Where some predators followed herds for days, studying movement and weakness before acting, while others relied on sudden speed and surprise, bursting from cover in short, decisive pursuits. And herbivores responded in kind, forming tighter groups, positioning the young and injured at the center, using numbers as defense rather than force. And in river systems, animals learned the dangers of crossing, where calm water could hide silent threats below, and patience often meant the difference between life and loss. While in open grasslands, dust clouds signaled movement miles away, giving both hunter and hunted time to prepare. And far from the surface, deep oceans followed a different rhythm entirely, cold, dark, and vast, where bioluminescent life flickered like distant stars, and massive creatures moved slowly through pressure and shadow, feeding sparingly but efficiently, conserving energy in a world where every motion carried cost. And above ground, the changing skies brought storms that reshaped coastlines, floods that renewed soil, and droughts that tested endurance, forcing animals to rely on instincts sharpened over generations. And through it all, birth and loss remained constant. Eggs laid in hidden nests, young guided through their most vulnerable moments, and elders fading as new life took their place, ensuring continuity even in uncertainty. And this endless cycle created a living archive of experience, where every creature carried the lessons of the past within its behavior. And though time would eventually erase these giants from the surface of the earth, their influence would never truly vanish, because the systems they built, the balances they maintained, and the paths they carved became the foundation of the natural world that followed. A reminder that long before modern life took shape, the planet had already mastered the art of survival through change. Yet, even in this finely tuned world, danger never announced itself loudly. It arrived quietly, often without warning, and the most successful creatures were those that sensed change before it appeared. A sudden silence in the forest, a shift in wind direction, ripples moving against the current, signs that meant something unseen was near, and predators learned to read these signals just as carefully as their prey, knowing that one mistake could cost everything. And in moments like these, the ancient world revealed its true nature, not violent, but precise, where every action mattered and every decision carried weight. And as night fell, the rules changed again. Shadows grew longer, temperatures dropped and new hunters took control. Their eyes adapted to darkness, their movements slower but deliberate, while others sought shelter, pressing close to the ground, trusting cover more than speed. And across the land, low calls echoed through valleys, signaling territory, warning rivals, or guiding lost members back to safety. And in these hours, fear and instinct ruled equally, shaping behavior in ways daylight never could. And somewhere between these cycles of day and night, life learned resilience, not through dominance, but through awareness, learning when to advance, when to retreat, and when to remain perfectly still. And it was this constant tension, this unspoken battle between risk and reward, that made the ancient world so alive, because survival was never guaranteed, even for the strongest. And it is this uncertainty, this fragile balance between life and loss, that continues to fascinate us today, drawing us deeper into a time when the earth itself seemed to breathe, watch, and wait. And as this ancient world pushed forward through endless cycles of time, survival revealed its harshest truth, that life was sustained only through loss, and every creature, no matter how gentle or fierce, was bound to the same rule, that to live, something else must give way. And for grazers, survival meant constant movement, feeding quickly, lifting their heads often, never allowing comfort to turn into carelessness, because a single moment of rest could invite disaster. While for hunters, survival demanded patience measured in hunger, days spent following trails, conserving strength, enduring failure after failure, until the one opportunity that mattered finally appeared. And when it did, there was no room for hesitation, because hesitation meant starvation, and starvation meant the end. And in these moments, the ancient world showing no mercy, only balance, where predators did not hunt out of cruelty, but necessity, and prey did not flee out of fear alone, but instinct sharpened by generations before them. And across plains, forests, rivers, and oceans, this exchange played out endlessly. Silent chases through tall grass, sudden bursts of motion, struggles decided in seconds, followed by stillness once again. And even then, nothing was wasted. Scavengers arrived, insects followed, the land reclaimed what remained, ensuring that life continued forward without pause. And young animals learned early, watching elders fall, understanding danger before they understood comfort, adapting not because they wished to, but because the world demanded it. And through drought, cold, heat, and storm, the rule remained unchanged: adapt or disappear. And it was this unforgiving reality that forged the strongest ecosystems the planet had ever known, systems built not on kindness, but on resilience, efficiency, and balance. And while it may seem brutal through modern eyes, this struggle was what allowed life to persist for millions of years, shaping creatures perfectly suited to their time, their environment, and their role, leaving behind a legacy etched into stone and memory, reminding us that the ancient world was not a place of peace or chaos, but a living trial, where survival itself was the greatest achievement. And over time, this constant struggle carved wisdom into behavior itself, turning survival into a learned art passed silently from one generation to the next, where the young observed everything, the way elders paused before crossing open ground, the way herds reacted instantly to unfamiliar sounds, the way hunters tested the wind before moving forward, understanding that scent could betray even the strongest among them. And in this world, hunger was a teacher more powerful than comfort, shaping decisions, sharpening instincts, forcing creatures to weigh risk against reward every single day, because chasing the wrong prey could mean wasted energy, and wasted energy could mean death. And so predators became selective, efficient, striking only when success outweighed danger, while prey learned endurance, learning how long to run, when to scatter, and when to stand firm as a group, knowing that unity could sometimes turn away even the deadliest threat. And across harsh landscapes, survival demanded adaptability. Thick skins for cold nights, light bodies for heat, strong lungs for thin air, and powerful limbs for escape. While storms swept across continents without warning, reshaping terrain, flooding valleys, and stripping life down to its essentials, forcing creatures to begin again. And yet, life persisted, not because conditions were kind, but because adaptation was relentless. And in oceans, where light faded quickly and pressure crushed the unprepared, survival required patience and precision. Where large hunters moved slowly, conserving strength, and smaller life forms thrived by hiding, glowing, or traveling in numbers too great to challenge. And everywhere, death was not an ending, but a transition, feeding soil, nourishing water, sustaining life unseen, binding all creatures into one continuous system. And as the ancient world endured, it became clear that survival was never about dominance alone, but about awareness, timing, and resilience. And it is this raw reality, this constant negotiation between life and loss, that made the ancient world so powerful, so balanced, and so enduring, leaving behind a lesson written not in words, but in stone and time, that survival was never easy, never fair, but always earned. And as this hard-earned wisdom spread across the ancient world, survival became less about instinct alone and more about discipline, where creatures learned that recklessness was punished swiftly and patience was often the difference between life and disappearance. And every landscape carried its own lessons: open plains teaching awareness and distance, dense forests demanding caution and silence, frozen regions rewarding endurance, and burning heat favoring those who could move when others could not. And in this reality, no creature lived without pressure, because even the largest giants were vulnerable when weakened by age, injury, or hunger, and the smallest lives survived only through speed, concealment, and constant vigilance. And as predators followed ancient routes carved by generations before them, prey adapted in response, altering migration paths, nesting habits, and feeding times, creating an ongoing contest where no side ever truly won, only endured longer than the other. And in moments of scarcity, the struggle intensified. Water sources became battlegrounds, feeding grounds grew crowded, and every encounter carried risk, forcing creatures to choose carefully when to advance and when to retreat, knowing that unnecessary conflict drained strength needed for the next day. And even reproduction carried danger. Nests had to be hidden, young protected, and timing perfected to ensure survival beyond the first vulnerable days. And through all of this, nature showed no preference, no mercy, no cruelty, only consequence, where success meant survival and failure meant becoming part of the world that sustained others. And over vast stretches of time, this system refined itself, eliminating waste, rewarding efficiency, and shaping life into forms perfectly suited for their moment in history. And it is within this unforgiving balance that the ancient world thrived, not as a place of peace, but as a proving ground, where every breath was earned, every movement mattered, and survival was never guaranteed, only pursued, again and again, under skies that watched silently as life fought to continue.
And as time pressed forward without pause, the ancient world grew even more demanding, teaching its inhabitants that survival was not a single act, but a constant test, repeated every hour of every day, where rest was brief, comfort rare, and awareness essential, because danger did not arrive dramatically, it crept in quietly, disguised as routine, disguised as safety, and those who relaxed too long often vanished without trace. And across open plains, herds learned to move like living walls, turning together, stopping together, sensing threats before they appeared, while lone animals faced a harsher reality, forced to rely solely on speed, timing, and instinct sharpened by fear. And in forests where light barely touched the ground, predators adapted to silence, learning to place each step with care, understanding that a single broken branch could end a hunt before it began, while prey memorized every escape path, every fallen tree, every rise in terrain that could mean the difference between life and being overtaken. And in regions shaped by cold, survival demanded endurance beyond strength, bodies conserving heat, movements slowed, energy saved for moments that truly mattered, while in burning deserts and sun-scorched lands, life adjusted in opposite ways, becoming lighter, faster, active only when the land itself allowed it, proving that survival had no single form, only countless solutions shaped by environment. And even the skies reflected this struggle, where flight was not freedom but responsibility, requiring constant calculation of wind, distance, and exhaustion, because a misjudged glide or sudden storm could turn dominance into downfall. And beneath the waters, survival was quieter but no less intense, where visibility was limited, pressure unforgiving, and encounters often ended before they were seen, forcing creatures to rely on vibration, movement, and instinct older than sight itself. And through all of these environments, hunger remained the great equalizer, stripping away hesitation, driving action, reminding every living thing that existence was earned daily. And as scarcity returned again and again through droughts, floods, and shifting climates, competition sharpened, alliances formed and dissolved, territories changed hands, and survival demanded not just strength, but restraint, because fighting unnecessarily meant wasting energy that might be needed tomorrow. And even life's beginning was fraught with danger. Eggs hidden beneath soil or leaves, young shielded by constant watchfulness, growth measured against risk, because only a fraction would ever reach maturity. And yet the cycle continued relentlessly, because failure fed success, loss sustained life, and nothing existed outside this exchange. And over millions of years, this unbroken system refined itself into balance, where no creature ruled forever, no advantage lasted without adaptation, and the ancient world endured not because it was gentle, but because it was honest, demanding everything from those who lived within it, asking only awareness, resilience, and the will to persist, leaving behind a legacy carved into stone and time, a reminder that survival was never promised, only possible, for those who learned the rules and respected the cost.
And as this ancient world continued to evolve under the weight of time, survival became not only a physical challenge, but a psychological one, where every creature carried the memory of danger within its behavior, shaping how it moved, fed, rested, and reacted, because those who forgot, even briefly, paid the price. And across vast landscapes, patterns emerged, trails worn into the earth by countless migrations, feeding grounds revisited only when conditions allowed, and territories defended not out of dominance but necessity. And in these spaces, encounters were rarely accidental. Predators learned where prey would gather, and prey learned which paths offered the best chance of escape, turning the land itself into a map of risk and opportunity. And in moments of confrontation, survival was decided not by chaos, but by calculation. Bursts of speed measured against endurance, strength weighed against timing, and instinct guided by experience passed silently from one generation to the next, while injuries, though often unseen, carried lasting consequences, slowing movement, limiting range, and quietly pushing even the strongest individuals closer to vulnerability. And in this way, time itself became a hunter, patient and relentless, waiting for weakness to appear. And yet, life pressed on, because reproduction was the ultimate defiance against extinction. Nests hidden with care, young guarded fiercely despite exhaustion, parents risking themselves not for survival alone, but for continuity, knowing that the future depended on sacrifice. And in harsh seasons when food grew scarce, desperation altered behavior, pushing animals beyond normal boundaries, forcing dangerous crossings, risky hunts, and uneasy proximity between rivals. And still, restraint remained vital, because unnecessary conflict drained strength needed for survival tomorrow. And as climates shifted slowly over thousands of years, some species adapted, growing larger, faster, more efficient, while others fell behind, their once successful traits turning into liabilities, reminding us that evolution was not a reward, but a response to pressure. And beneath oceans where sunlight faded and silence ruled, survival demanded even greater precision. Movements slowed to conserve energy, encounters brief and decisive, because in the depths, hesitation meant vanishing into darkness. And above, storms reshaped coastlines, floods erased nesting grounds, and fires cleared forests, forcing life to begin again on altered terrain, proving that survival was never about permanence but flexibility. And through all of this, the ancient world endured as a system built on consequence, where every action echoed outward, affecting not just one life, but many, binding creatures together in an invisible network of dependence. And it is within this relentless, unforgiving balance that the true story of the ancient world lives, not as a tale of monsters or dominance, but as a chronicle of endurance, where survival was never guaranteed, only pursued, day after day, generation after generation, beneath skies that witnessed it all in silence.
And so, as the ancient world slowly gave way to the ages that followed, its lesson remained written into the land itself, that survival was never about domination alone, but about balance, awareness, and the quiet strength to endure. Because every creature that walked, swam, or flew across this world was part of something far greater than itself. A system shaped by struggle, yet sustained by harmony, where life persisted not through mercy, but through purpose. And even as giants vanished and oceans shifted, their presence never truly disappeared, living on in the patterns of nature, the instincts of modern animals, and the fragile balance that still governs life today, reminding us that the world we know was built on countless lives, countless trials, and countless moments of survival won and lost. And though we stand far removed from that ancient time, the truth remains unchanged, that life continues only through adaptation, respect for nature's rules, and an understanding that survival has always come at a cost. And as we look back across millions of years, through stone, fossil, and memory, we are reminded that this planet was never shaped by ease, but by resilience. And the ancient world, silent now, still speaks to us, not in words, but in warning and wonder, asking us to remember where life came from, how hard it fought to continue, and how carefully the balance must be protected, because survival, then as now, was never guaranteed, only earned.